So here's the update on my tiny toy hauler build for today. I have been doing quite a bit of work with it. I've got some more of the framing in place. It's still not done. I've started putting the skin on it, and then I've also started running the wires. So what I'm going to focus on this video is the siding, the framing, some of the mistakes I made, and then also how I'm thinking, at least, I'm going to do the electrical. So to put this stuff up, I've done drywall before where I measure and I cut and I'm always off. So what I actually did was I want this to overlap the frame a little bit so that if it's raining, the water drips down and it can't wick back up. This is a 4-inch square tubing and this is a 2x4, which means it's 3.5 inches. So as long as I get this bottom flush with a 2x4, and this is a fairly straight 2x4, then I have a 1/2 inch of a gap here. What I'm planning on doing is I'm going to Poor Man's Fiberglass this whole thing, and in all the videos that I've seen online about Poor Man's Fiberglass, people are just throwing it up there. I don't know how you protect this little tiny under lip. I can picture driving down the road in heavy rain, splashing water up everywhere, and then it getting up here, or even just kind of getting on this corner and then it soaks up like a sponge and works its way into the wood. So I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing it. I haven't seen any information on what to do there. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to take this board off, and I'm just going to Poor Man's Fiberglass the bottom 2 inches or so, and then wrap it around and then come up maybe 1 inch. And then go ahead and do that, just that little piece off the trailer, and then I'll get it mounted back up here, and then when I do my actual, the whole side, I'll just have it tapered down, I'll have it come down and then in, so I'll have a small double overlap here, so kind of like shingles on a roof, the water will roll down that. And then if water's splashing up, it's all still completely sealed. I'm also going to run a small strip of butyl tape. I'm planning down the side. So what I did was I just took a full board of this stuff. By the way, this is I bought this stuff at Home Depot. It's floor underlayment. It's hardboard. It's I think 5 millimeters, 1/5 of an inch thick. So it's pretty thin stuff, but it seems pretty stout, especially once you get it up there and screw it down. It's okay. Anyway, I threw the whole piece up here and I just got it lined up straight on the back. I put a few screws in it, and then I took a pencil and drew around where these holes were that I needed to cut out. Then I transferred it over, just put it on some sawhorses, actually set the door and the window on it, and then traced out the corners. So that way the corners would be good. And then when I was actually cutting it with I used a jigsaw to cut it. When I was cutting it, I went about probably a 1/4 inch further out on the turns and then stayed there. And you can see, it worked out pretty good. I test fitted everything back in once I got it all up, and it all still fits. So far I'm pretty happy with it. I've got a cutout for a plug there. I did the cutout on the front for the AC hatch. At first I was going to rip this board and have this be an angle. And I decided, kind of, since this stuff was flexible enough, I just bent it. I curved it. I don't know. I kind of like, I can't decide if I like the look of the curve or if it would have looked better at a sharp angle. But I went ahead and went with the curve. And the main reason was because I'm not very good at ripping these things perfectly straight. And I knew I would have a seam here where they wouldn't be perfectly straight. It would kind of, worm in and out. And so I didn't want that to be a problem. I would have had to put trim on it or figure something out to hide that. So instead, this is just a full 4-foot piece that I set on, and I cut the side. And so this bottom one down here, I can rip the bottom because you're not going to see the bottom. And then this will still butt joint right here and should be good. I am going to have a little bit of an issue here. I didn't want to notch my frame to have the siding come down into it. So, but everything I've seen videos on other people who had their boards just end right here, and then the water will end up going underneath and sucking up into the floorboard. So I've only got this spot and then the spot on the other side where this is going to be a problem. So I'm just going to have to do a really good job of making sure I seal that the best I can. I'll probably just end up notching it here and then setting a piece of butyl tape down and smashing this onto the butyl tape, and then, or I'll probably fiberglass it too while it's off on the bench. I'll have it sit on butyl tape, and then when I'm done with that, I'll get some Dicor or caulk or something and just kind of put it around that little hump. So hopefully that's enough to keep that from being a problem. This other side, same thing. I've just got them screwed up there for now. I did finish this top though, and I think it looks pretty good. Same thing, I ripped a piece in half because I knew I was going to use half for this side, half the other side. Factory edge down, screwed it to the studs, and then just took my pencil and drew where the line was, took it off, used my jigsaw to cut it. Now let's go inside and talk a little bit about my electrical. Actually, sorry, back to the framing still. My dad pointed out, he said, well, what are you going to do with these little areas? And I thought, well, at first I thought it wasn't going to be a problem because, you know, I'll have my boards spanning that. But then I was thinking, well, I am going to need some meat on the corner for this stuff to bite down on. So I probably should have had that, taken that into consideration when framing this whole thing, because now I've got a bunch of extra wood that I'm going to have to add just so I can get some meat to grip onto. And you can see I've only done that one section. In fact, this board isn't even attached yet because I have to get my roof vent and make sure it fits before I actually screw that last one in, because my roof vent is going to go here to open up to vent. But I still have to do these other ones, and I may just end up cutting a 2x2. It just depends on what I have laying around, to go on the top, to the top here, so that I do have meat on the corner, and then I'll still have that void. That should be fine. But that's the mistake I made. I probably should have come up with a better approach for this header board instead of just doubling it up. But at the same time, now it's going to be solid because I got a lot of wood there. I was a little concerned about running my wiring down. This is just a 2x2, and I would have had to have drilled a pretty big hole because the amount of wires I have going down this little joint right here. And so I just drilled, I think it's 3/8 inch holes, and I drilled 3 of them. I was able to fit 4 wires through one, but since I had I had 9 wires to go through it, I just split them up and did 3 in each hole. So these 2 are low voltage and this one's high voltage. Now for wiring, I had this old, right there on the floor, this old extension cord. It was a 16 gauge 100-foot extension cord, super cheap one that I got, and it's been out in my yard forever. I think I ran over it a long time ago with a lawnmower and just kind of piled it up and threw it somewhere. So I'm using an extension cord to run my high voltage wiring inside. It's probably not advised, but I'm gonna be happy with it. I don't think I'm gonna be pulling enough current to really have a problem with using 16 gauge wiring. I put one plug here. The reason I put it there is because, again, I wanted to minimize the 2x2s that I had to drill through, and I would have had to go through 2 2x2s here to put it down here, which is kind of where I wanted it so the AC could plug into it. So instead, I'll just have to run my AC wire up the wall and plug it in. I'm not too worried about that. That's the only plug I have besides this one over here. So this side is going to have 2 light switches, and then 2 plugs. So again, I don't really think I need to go crazy with the amount of outlets in this thing. I don't really even know what I'm going to plug in besides the AC unit and maybe something to charge a battery here and there. You know, that's all I can really think of. So I put it by the door for 2 reasons. One, because I'm already running wiring down this wall, so it's less insulation stuff I got to deal with, making special cuts for. And then also because I can picture myself just opening the door, setting something in, and plugging it in to charge. So it's easy to access. Now my 4 switches, I'm going to have one, and I've already got all the wiring set up for this. One is going to go to a outdoor strip light that I've ordered. It's supposed to come in today. Then one is going to go to an inside strip light that I'm also going to put along this wall. I'm going to try to see if I can come up with a way to flip it up so I have indirect lighting. I'm going to have a white ceiling, so that should really help out in here. One thing I don't like about LED lights, especially in campers, is they're usually very extreme. So you've got, let's say I put one in the ceiling, that's all you can see. It's really bright, and it's going to put out a decent amount of light and not use a lot of power, but it's going to blind you if you look at it. So if I can somehow get indirect lights, I think it will feel a lot more homey inside this thing. So we're going to see. I got some coming in. It's like a truck bed kit. They're 5-foot LED strips, completely waterproof. And if it turns out it's not enough light, I also ran a power wire over here, so I can put another one on this wall pointing up. So I think that should be really cool. So the interior lights, exterior lights, marker lights, and then the fan. So marker lights are just the outside markers. So if I get up in the middle of the night and go outside to do something, I don't want to make a ton of light. I'll just have the marker lights on, and that should be enough to walk around with. Plus, as I had said before, the marker lights are also going to be on the same circuit that my AC actuator hatch is going to be on. Then the last one is my ceiling fan, which the wiring is right here for it right now, but I'll run it along here, and the vent fan, sorry, not the ceiling fan. So the other thing is going to be the 12-volt power supply. I'm doing all of this on one circuit, so hopefully that doesn't end up being a mistake. I'm probably going to end up regretting it, but I didn't want to have to put in a fuse block and all that good stuff. So, 16 gauge, again, pretty much just running the AC and maybe something to charge with. So that, I'm not that worried about having a circuit breaker. I can use a circuit breaker that either the campground has, the generator has, or the EcoFlow has. So I'm hoping I can use this EcoFlow, and stay tuned for another video where I'm actually going to test the 12-volt power supply on this to see if it can run everything. But I really have 4 things that I could potentially run: the marker lights with the actuator, the inside lights, the outside lights, and the fan. So I'm going to see if this EcoFlow can power all of those 12-volt devices at the same time. And if it can, then it's a pass. I can use that as my power supply. I can save money on not getting a converter or a battery or an inverter or any of that kind of stuff, because this has it all. I'm going to put just a plug on the end of this. I'm thinking I'll put it up here high. I'll build like a little cabinet shelf or something that I can set the EcoFlow in. Now, coming off of the vehicle, I have wiring, and one of those is a 12-volt power wire coming from my vehicle. So I can even have this thing set up to charge my EcoFlow while I'm driving down the road. So that'll be kind of nice. I'm thinking about building a bracket on the tongue for my generator. That's going to depend on the weight, if this thing ends up needing a lot of extra weight. But I can mount a generator up there and then come up with a way to wire that in as well. So I can fire up that generator to quickly charge my EcoFlow and also run all my 12-volt or all my high voltage devices I have in here. But yeah, so I'm just going to have one circuit. This one red wire coming off the ceiling is the source for all the stuff that could potentially run inside of this camper. So I need to figure out how many watts it's going to pull, what kind of a fuse to put on it. Stay tuned for a future video for that. And the other thing I'm going to do a video on here in the future is actually doing my corner edge on the poor man's fiberglass. I don't know if I'm going to get to that tonight. I may have to wait till tomorrow before I actually get to that, where I take these bottom panels off and just fiberglass the bottom 2 inches or inch or so of each of these boards. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here on this bend, because if you look carefully, see if I can get you guys lined up. There you go. You can see daylight through it. It bent, so it has a nice smooth curve, or so it looks. I'm thinking I'm going to have corner trim covering this up. The fiberglass will overlap it a little bit. I don't know if I need to do anything. I may wait until I'm ready to bolt this thing together, and then just fill it with caulk, and sand it so there's no sharp edges. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so that's what I got going on. I do kind of need to finish the roof too. One other thing, insulation. This is all 1-inch foam board that I ran out. I'm just using scrap pieces that I had, believe it or not. Looks like I only need 1 or 2 more boards probably to finish this whole thing, including this back wall that I haven't framed out yet. But the roof, I have some R13 fiberglass bats left over from another project that I ended up using them in. I'm thinking one roll may be enough to cover all this. And so that gives me R13, which is a little bit better than the foam. Fiberglass doesn't perform as good as foam in general because foam is also a air gap. But I don't really know if I want too tight of an air gap in this, because I am going to have a vent on the back, a passive vent that's always open for you know, oxygen, so I don't, if I run a heater in or something in here, I don't die. But the roof, I'm gonna get that OSB that has the radiant barrier on one side of it and use that. So I'll have the radiant barrier and the fiberglass. That should be enough. I think my my dad's camper, he sent me some pictures the other day because he was changing out his vent in it. He has a factory built camper and all it had was fiberglass in the ceiling. It didn't even have a radiant barrier. So I think that should be fine. And it was real thin too. It was like an inch thick, I'm pretty sure. So 3.5 inches of R13 fiberglass should be pretty decent, especially for the roof where you're going to be getting blasted by the sun in the summertime. So, and then in the wintertime, all your heat rises and you want to trap it all in as much as possible. So that's what I got so far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos about my tiny toy hauler build.